Hey, everybody. Warren Tidwell here with the podcast Fire by Friction, a place where I discuss everything from workers' rights to the current trampling of our constitutional rights, but mostly rights related stuff and other connected things through the eyes of a working class Southerner, me. I record these in one take quickly on a Monday in between running back and forth between projects, so the production is what it is. As always, I do this because I have the privilege to do so without repercussions at work or otherwise. I'm also not being targeted by our federal government yet. Lately, there has been more happening than I could take time to discuss. I do work full time running across Alabama, but not literally. That's the name of my nonprofit, where we are currently standing in the gaps of multiple failures of governance in the rural South. It's within a broken system, too, but then again, most are. Remember, the purpose of a system is exactly what it does. Today, we will discuss some radical new music, the growth of the police state, and a book written by one of the most talented writers I know, Brian Goldstone. And I'm privileged to know a lot of great writers. First up, though, Cigarettes at Sunset. No, not the act, the band. Appalachian Possum Rock, they call it. Their song Rewind is the song of the week, with lines like, "This country needs a facelift. This country's full of hypocrites." It caught my eye while I was doom scrolling away on a break from doing some plumbing work at our Community Resource Center we are currently building in Campbell, Alabama. I'm putting a link in the description, so check out this banger when you can. That's how my teenager would describe it. Unlike the kids driving their parents bonkers with 6-7 stuff, I'm on the opposite side of things, making my kiddo cringe daily. He's currently looking at me and cringing right now. That's Cigarettes at Sunset with an @ symbol like email. These are the only cigarettes I can assure you that are good for you. And this will become a regular feature. A couple of years ago, I asked where are the artists in the resistance, and boy, let me tell you, since then, they've been on fire. The Dropkick Murphys have been on it for a while, and their song Who Will Stand With Us is what gave me the idea for this part of the podcast. Next week, you'll learn about Cassie Blanton if you don't already know her. Leave some recommendations for me in the comments if you would. I often speak of the creatives and how they drive work far from them, and I can't tell you how many times I've listened to We Dare Defend Our Rights by Lee Baines III and the Glory Fires on the way to work or a speaking event or protest. Next subject today, and yes, I'm still on it, speaking of protest, and I will be for some time, ICE. Minnesota is still getting a double serving of it. We are seeing citizens being targeted only to be dropped off later. This includes a 17-year-old who was picked up at Target where he worked as he screamed that he was a U.S. citizen. He was dropped at a Walmart 8 miles away, and the video shows he had been roughed up. And that video is hard to watch, as all he can do is cry. The brown shirts keep terrorizing our streets as the president keeps pushing to invoke the Insurrection Act that will allow him to put the U.S. Army on the streets, which will be a terrible thing. Because that's the thing, everything we're currently seeing, as many of you are aware, is a manufactured crisis. For those not paying attention, there's a massive push in right-wing spaces to be in Minneapolis, and it started before this ICE invasion because of fraud by immigrants, specifically Somalian, where they defrauded the U.S. government by receiving grants for childcare and food assistance that they did not deliver. They, however, were not the only ones. A right-wing provocateur, Nick Shirley, made a series of videos a few weeks ago in December that appeared to show the empty childcare facilities of places still receiving grants. He claimed this was proof of billions of dollars of fraud there. A month earlier, President Trump canceled protective status for Somalians in Minnesota. The fraud showed up in right-wing spaces as a new thing, but the investigation started in 2022 under the Biden administration, and 90 people have been indicted for related charges since. Now, the fraud was real, but there was a massive effort to investigate the fraud starting years ago, and many people were charged, along with the Somalians. Those who have been following it through those right-wing news channels, though, think this is something Nick Shirley unearthed, and it's now being used to paint the 80,000 Somalis in Minnesota as corrupt and Minnesota officials as inept. The child care facilities were visited by the state of Minnesota, and all but one had children there where they visited. The one without children was closed. That scandal is at the root of manufacturing consent within the MAGA base. Right now, the storylines are that millions are being taken away, millions of dollars, that is, through the local airport by Somalians, and the pictures and memes that are using to show that they're fake. But it works to convince those who want it to be true. You know, they need it to be true, so they believe it. And it's why Minnesota was chosen and why the Trump administration is using it for a test run for escalation elsewhere. And in that escalation, there's software by AI ghouls Palantir that is likely the catalyst for a lot of wrong people being targeted. The app, named Elite, which stands for Enhanced Leads Identification and Targeting for Enforcement, generates detailed, data-filled maps to track individuals across America, according to 404 Media, who had investigated. Using the app, ICE agents can view individuals' names, photos, specific confidence scores for home addresses, right? Internal user guides describe Elite as a targeting platform that uses advanced analytics to locate high-value targets quickly. ICE agents and officials can filter maps by special operations or specific demographics, including location, name, or immigrant identification number. Senator Ron Wyden, a Democrat from Oregon, compared the Elite app's ease of use to using a map to find a coffee shop on a cell phone. And sworn testimony from an ICE agent in an Oregon raid in December confirmed that the tool helps find target-rich locations, which show a transition towards logistics for mass removals. We are witnessing firsthand the creation of the police state through technology meant for immigration enforcement. And many people who know me know I also detest the flock AI cameras that supposedly are just tag readers. A different version of their cameras does far more than serve as license plate readers, though. They track people in parks and shopping centers where they document who you are through facial recognition, and cameras that can track movement down to reading your phone over your shoulder. I find that terrifying. And a lot of people say that's irrelevant as we have phones that track us. I used to disagree and say that at least requires a court order or warrant until I learned of Palantir's graphite program that hacks phones just by sending a text message. You don't even have to open them. It implants information that also tracks movement through cell tower signal access. This isn't conspiracy theory nonsense. This is very real. And people joke with me and tell me I'm going to be put on a watch list for speaking out on things like this. Here's the thing. I'm already on some with Influence Watch being one. I'm not joking. They have a post on their website reporting that I once said that just saying Black Lives Matter isn't enough, and that I went on to say that we're going to take down Confederate statues in the South. And that was enough for a right-wing think tank funded by ExxonMobil to target me. But thanks for documenting I'm on the right side of history, guys. I sincerely appreciate that. In all seriousness, while that doesn't bother me, the rapid growth of the surveillance state is terrifying. The sad thing is that it's being driven by people who are some of the most anti-government, paranoid people there are. Anti-government as long as they disagree with that government. The same people are pro-Second Amendment until it's people they disagree with or think shouldn't exist with guns. A lot of people feel that we have run out of time to fix these things, and I get that, and I'm not so sure. But I do share some of the nihilism about some issues as we have crossed the Rubicon on many things. The country at large accepting that mass shootings are the norm now being one. The other, something that was pointed out by a good friend in another country, is that it appears the U.S. has given up on fixing things. He said the rest of the world has recognized the U.S. empire is dying. And until people in the United States recognize it, they won't start to come back from an era where terms like working homeless and medical debt exist. And that once again, they've been normalized. And I will finish up today the same way I finish up every podcast, by featuring good work by good humans going against that normalization. Work that inspires hope. Because a lot of people are asking, and rightfully so, where do we find hope in what seems to be such a dark era in the United States? I find hope in the work of good humans like Brian Goldstone. I attended an event last night where he discussed his incredible book, There Is No Place for Us, a story of multiple families dealing with housing insecurity in Atlanta. I witnessed firsthand people looking at a problem directly in the eye and Brian passionately calling for a real effort to eliminate the fact that people are working homeless in the United States. It was hosted at a local church by a group known as the Good News Neighbors and headed up by Joe Davis, someone who is doing everything he can to help address this issue locally in Auburn, Alabama. Joe is helping lead novel projects that attempt to address the unhoused issue here, some that could become a model for other places outside of where we met there in Auburn. And I could do a whole episode on this book and may interview Brian at some point, I hope. But right now, I'm going to talk about what work like his work means and the work he does, what it means. In the crowd last night, there were leaders from both Auburn and Opelika, two towns that refused to open warming centers for the unhoused, with a city rep telling a local organizer that we don't have any homeless folks. Over 200 people gathered for Brian to passionately lay out an issue in a way where they could not avert their eyes. That elected rep was there to witness it and hear directly from people working on the problem. Back in March, the Trump administration canceled Brian's appearance at the Jimmy Carter Presidential Library, something I was looking forward to attending. It didn't matter. What had to feel like a huge gut punch then for him likely gave way to elation when the book took off in many circles, even with former President Barack Obama naming it one of his top 10 books of 2025. But I know Brian didn't write the book for those reasons. It's obviously a labor of love. And I have to say, I'm a little biased, as I've been a fan of his work for nearly a decade now. Strangely enough, I encountered Brian Goldstone in rural Ghana at a guest house where I was staying when I was working there. And the subject matter of my focus there would take a series of episodes to cover. But Brian was there writing about the mental health systems in Ghana as a journalist for Harper's Magazine. I'll try and remember to put the link in the description because it is a beautiful piece that captured his experience with an incredibly sensitive issue there. I knew he was one hell of a writer then. We connected on social media long ago, and we have remained friends since. In another piece he wrote for Harper's, he touched on something close to me, and that's the opiate crisis. He writes in a way that, it seeks to expand the reaches of his own empathy, and something that I can assure you is immense to begin with. He humanizes his subjects in the ways I seek to in my own writing, and I think it's something that comes natural to him because he's just a good person. And there are good people all over the place doing amazing work, far from the media cameras or spotlights. Those are the people I focus on. Sure, resist ICE and work to make sure the innocent people they are targeting are protected, along with our Fourth Amendment, but also make sure to support the good people who are out there educating people and humanizing the stories of the people failed by our systems at large. There are a lot of them out there using their time and talent to care for the world around them and push for the systemic changes needed to address the problems they see. And Brian Goldstone is one of them. I'm grateful to call him my friend. Get a copy of his book at briangoldstone.net or at any of the major suppliers. One last quick side note now for a certain subset of people who follow us here. Everything I talk about here on Fire by Friction is connected, from disasters driven by climate change to people losing their housing to addiction issues. These are all issues I believe we could solve if we, like my friend said before, acknowledge them and work for a position of intellectual honesty from a position. We have a number of people doing that, and they're doing that as my dear friend Ryan Cagle does, a righteous soul on a mission for others in the name of what he believes. Here in the Deep South, I encounter deeply devout people, or those who claim to be, nearly every day. It has been to my eternal frustration that a lot of the log jams are created by those who claim to love their neighbors as themselves, but who go online and cheer families separated by ICE, share memes dehumanizing others, and use their faith as an excuse for their bigotry. A lot of people walked away from the church and now hold deep resentment, which is completely understandable. But that often leads them to paint the entire group with the same brush. I'm very guilty of that myself. The last thing I want to do, though, is to thank those righteous souls like Ryan Cagle and Joshua Lewis. I may not be affiliated with anything, but I have a great appreciation for those who live their lives with kindness and humility and service to their communities. I wish I could be more like them in that respect. Y'all keep doing what you're doing. I believe the kind of people you are could blaze the trails needed where we are here in the Deep South and show people that there's a better way to be together. That's it for episode 4. Let me know if you enjoyed it and get at me at warren@acrossalabama.org if you ever want to talk.